This is the podcast for Narrate Church. Narrate Church meets every Sunday at 9 and 11 a.m. at the Grand Street Theater in Helena, Montana. For more information, visit www.narratechurch.org.
Hi, Narrate. Great to be with you today. That's our family right there, those four little girls whose pictures you saw in the refrigerator, the ones that Jasmine and Kinsey magneted up there to the fridge door. They're our newest four daughters, but they're not home yet. They're 7, 5, 3, and 18 months, and so we don't actually have 12 kids. Well, we do, but they're not all home, so we'll see how high the capacity really is. We leave a week from yesterday to go to the Congo and bring them home to our family, and there are 4 sisters, and we're so excited for the privilege of adopting them, and we really can't wait to have them home. We covet your prayers, if you would, on that front, please, as we bring them home. Again, it is so great to be with you. Thank you, Adam and Teresa, for having me. I've said it before, and I'll keep saying it again and again and again. You have a terrific pastor. Did you know that? You have a terrific pastor. Adam is one of the, very, he loves the applause, by the way. He loves the applause. Just relishes the applause. He and Teresa and their sons, they're a great family. And you know, I don't know if there's another church in America where the pastor's wife plays the drums. I mean, that is amazing to me. She loves the applause even more than Adam does. Yeah. Sorry. You have a terrific, the whole staff team around here is amazing. And I just want you to hear from me that your friends at Journey and Bozeman are so proud of all that God is doing in you, in the life of your church, in the life of your community. And so we're like cheering you on. Way to go, Narrate, and we'll just keep cheering you on. I want to talk a little bit today about the reality that Jesus Christ, right, the one and only Son of God, how he was raised from the dead so that you and I can experience the power of God himself to overcome sin in our lives and to be about the very same things that Jesus Christ himself was about. I think all of us in this room would real quickly agree that Jesus rose from the dead absolutely so that we could have forever eternal life with him someday in heaven, right? That's absolutely 100% accurate. But isn't it true that there's so much more, right? There's so much more to Jesus rising from the dead than just heaven someday. Because you see, by Christ's resurrection, ordinary people, here's what it means for us. Ordinary people, just like you and just like me, we have this incredible ability to experience firsthand the power of God, the very same power that rose Jesus from the dead. That's stunning, isn't it? Absolutely stunning. And we're all human beings in this room, and so we have something in common, and that something in common is that we like power, don't we? Like, let's just be honest. We all like power. Humanity is like way into power, as a matter of fact. Marketers in our culture, they've become very aware of that. They know that we enjoy power, and so they've tapped into that. All you have to do is look around you. We eat things like power bars, right? They just put the word right in the, right? Like, oh man, I need some of that. And we eat power bars to fuel our work and our recreational pursuits. Some of us create, and most all of us have to endure. We have to sit through some PowerPoint presentation, right? And often they go like that. Right? Like, can you picture the slides with like 8-point font filling the entire slide, and you're thinking, oh my gosh, are we ever going to get out of here, wherever here is? I heard about these things called power lunches. I don't know what a power lunch is. I think that might be one right there, but you know, have you ever, a power lunch? Is that a power lunch even? I've never been to one, I don't think. We try, some people even succeed in making their physical bodies much more powerful with power workouts. That's Photoshop right there, right? I mean, like, no resemblance whatsoever. Let's just admit it, we like power. Power makes us feel strong, and I'm certain that this doesn't apply to anyone in this room today, but I'll just throw this out there anyway. Lots and lots of people spend the better part of their lives pursuing the absolute most power they can possibly attain, don't they? Maybe you know someone like that. Fortune magazine, multiple times over the course of a year, they celebrate humanity's pursuit of power with their what they call their power issues. There's the 40 most powerful people in business under the age of 40 years old edition of Fortune magazine. You can discover who the 50 most powerful women in business are in the course of a year. You can read their Power 25 edition. All of this sort of celebration of power, one of the most, quote, powerful magazines in print, right? And whether you ever make one of Fortune magazine's power listings or not, I'm here today to tell you that the kind of power that Fortune magazine measures, it eventually runs out. It eventually runs out. One author of a recent Fortune magazine power listing introduction had this to say: in my many years of hanging around the most powerful people in business, I've observed that no matter how much you've got, that's power, how much power you've never got it all. The gradations are important. Maybe you're powerful in your office, but are you powerful down the hall? How about in another town, in another country? How about all those who would have made the list last year who are entirely forgotten this year? And so you see, even those who chronicle the supposed most powerful titans of industry and so, they acknowledge that at the end of the day, the pursuit of their breed of power eventually runs out. Those that they so enthusiastically report on, they eventually stop making the power listings. They, for one reason or another, lose their power. They're forgotten. After all, at the end of the day, everyone eventually dies, right? And the Apostle Paul, he wrote these fantastic words about an entirely different kind of power than Fortune magazine measures from the book of Ephesians, chapter 1, verses 18 through 20. Paul writes, I pray that your hearts will be flooded with light so that you can understand the confident hope he has given to those he called, his holy people, who are his rich and glorious inheritance. I also pray that you will understand the incredible greatness, get this, of God's power for us who believe him. I also pray, Paul says, that you will understand the incredible greatness of God's power for us who believe him. This is the same mighty power that raised Christ from the dead and seated him in the place of honor at God's right hand in the heavenly realms. And Paul's saying to us today, look, would you forget, please, forget all about the kind of power that so many people in this world are pursuing. And we just give it up, put it down, because you see, the very same power that raised Jesus Christ from the dead 2,000 some years ago is available to ordinary people just like you and just like me. And that is the kind of power that God has in mind for his children, for his followers, for his Big C church. In the book of Acts, chapter 8, we find the narrative of a guy named Simon the magician. And Simon, in his day, was showing up on all kinds of world's most powerful listings. You could read the story, Acts chapter 8 sometime. You should read it. But the crux of the story is that this guy, his name was Simon the magician, he was running around boasting and showing off all the great power he had. He was a wizard, and he had quite an incredible little show going on. He wowed the crowds with smoke and mirrors, wowed them with his amazing wizardry, and so they actually called Simon the magician the Great Power. That was his nickname. How would you like that to be your nickname? The Great Power. You can just call me the Great Power. Whoa, here comes the Great Power. And there he was, all great, all powerful, until one day when two of Jesus' disciples, Peter and John, they showed up in town, and what did they start doing? The miraculous. The authentically miraculous in the power of God kind of stuff. And Peter and John's miracles, they actually helped people. They actually healed people. And what Peter and John were doing, Simon the magician, the one they called the supposed great power, he could not hold a candle to what Peter and John were doing. Simon the magician had nothing in his bag of tricks that even compared to the things that Peter and John were doing in and through and by the very power of God, the same power that raised Jesus Christ from the dead. And so there's Simon, this big smoke and mirrors show. He might have even, worn a glinting cape, and so predicting the future, melodramatic declaration. You can imagine melodramatic declarations of fate and fortune. And there would, as you would expect, there would have been a swarm of people crowding around him, awed and silenced, watching in amazement. And then all of a sudden, one day, not as many people were coming around Simon's show. The next day, there were likely even fewer people out to see him. And then Simon realized that his powerful magical appeal was, it was vanishing. And so what's he do? He's no dummy. He did what any smart magician, what any smart wizard would do. He sidles up next to the disciples, Peter and John, and he hands them a few bucks and goes like, what a show you guys got going on. Wow. This is amazing. This crowd-pleasing thing. Now, wow. Now, come on, guys. How'd you do it? Come on. Here's some more money. How did you do it? I'll pay you really good money if you just tell me your secret. Come on. Because you see, here's the deal, guys. Some of these people who are here watching your show, they used to watch my show, and well, obviously I need a little help with my little show. We help me beef it up. I need more power. I'm lagging behind you guys, so how about it? Will you help make me as powerful as you are? And Peter, he was often kind of gruff, wasn't he? He was sort of a gruff disciple of Jesus Christ. And you could just tell that Peter would have not been very amused in this situation. And so Peter, as only Peter could do, looks right into Simon's heart and sees right to the root of the matter. And says, you want real power, Simon? It's not about some big show. Real power is not about some big show. It isn't about your little cutesy nickname, The Great Power. It's not about showing up in the world's most powerful listings. Understand this, Simon. You cannot buy the power of God with money. This isn't just some cheap mall parking lot extravaganza that we're talking about here. This is the very power of God himself at work. Simon, come on, bud. Get a clue. Get a clue. No more smoke, no more mirrors. Simon, Peter just cuts right to the chase and he says, you know, Simon, what this is really all about? This is about what's going on inside of your heart. This is what's going on at the depths of your soul. That's what's in view here, Simon. And you see, what was true about Simon's heart is the very same thing that's true about so many other people's heart, maybe even some of us, even lots of Christians, which, by the way, Simon was a Christian. He had given his life to Christ. He had, yes, been baptized, but he was still harboring stuff in his heart. Bitterness was one of the things he was harboring. Envy was something else that he was harboring. And maybe, just maybe, Simon had resolved that he was going to just be that way for the rest of, maybe he thought that would just be the case for the rest of his days. Right? I'll just have this stuff. I'll just carry this stuff. It's just a thorn in my flesh. Lots and lots of Christians do that today, don't they? Lots and lots of Christians think that they just have to deal with the junk in their life from their days before Christ. They just have to deal with it staying put in their hearts. But Paul would have us understand something entirely different. That is not the case. That is absolutely not the case. Part of the reason, see, that Jesus Christ was raised from the dead is that so that you and I, as his followers, as his kids, can experience the mighty power of God himself at work in our hearts and in our lives. And sometimes we Christians, we hear about the power of God and we think that it's just all about the big show, the big time, the big whatever, when you know what's more often true than not is that the power of God most frequently abounds right here in our hearts, today in our hearts. As the very power of God, the same power, remember, that raised Jesus Christ from the dead, as that same power changes us today, as it transforms us today, like from old to new, from sick to well, from broken to whole, from greedy to generous, from sexually addicted to sexually pure, from envious to contentedness, from bitterness to forgiving. The power of God, from corruption to honesty. I could keep going. That's the power of God at work in our hearts. The same power, mighty power that raised Jesus Christ from the dead. And Paul wants to make sure that our understanding of the power of God is crystal clear. And so he goes on, Ephesians chapter 3, verse 20, and here's what he says. Get this. Now all glory to God, of course, all glory to God, who is able, through his mighty power at work, see, it's at work within us to accomplish infinitely more than we might ask or think. Infinitely more than we might ask or think. What that means is that the power of God, the resurrection power of God, the same power that raised Jesus Christ from the dead, That same power is at work in us in overcoming anger and resisting greed and forgiving those who hurt us, living a sexually pure life, releasing bitterness, being freed up from envy. All of that power is more powerful, able to accomplish so much more than we can ask or think or imagine. It's that powerful. And it's at work in us today. Those who follow Jesus Christ, those who are in relationship with Jesus Christ, that power is at work today inside of us. The unimaginable power of God is available, widely available to us, which means that any of us who claim the name of Jesus Christ, spending our lives captive to sin of any kind, is not God's intent for us. That doesn't intend for us just to, yep, that's just the way it's going to be. I'm going to have that, whatever it is, I'm just going to carry it with me until Jesus. That's not God's intention for his kids. Because you see, the resurrection power of Jesus Christ has been released in us so that we may overcome, so that we may be set free from the sin that so easily scoops us up, ensnares us, entangles us, whatever word you want to use. And understand this about the sin that we often get caught up in. It isn't just petty human stuff. Sometimes we think it is. Oh, I'm just in conflict with that person or that person. There's dark spiritual powers at work. Any time that we're in conflict, or any time we're angry, or any time we steal, or any time we lie, or any time we're bitter, any time we slander people, any time we cross lines into sexual immorality, when we're greedy, when we deceive people, on and on and on it goes. Dark spiritual powers are in play. And so for the Christ follower, for the person who wants to overcome sin, for the person who wants to stand firm in the midst of the conflict with those dark spiritual powers, you don't just decide that you're going to stop that or quit that or put that down. We must stand firm, stand fast in God's power and overcome them by his power, not ours. You can't ever just pull yourself up by your bootstraps and go, I'm going to quit that, I'm going to stop that. You might be able to do it for a day or a week, maybe even a month or so. But it has to be the power of God in and through us. Pray. Ask. God, would you please, by your mighty power, the same power that raised Jesus from the dead, the same power that's present and at work in my heart and life today, would you set me free, Jesus Christ? Would you set me free from that, and would you set me free from that, and would you set me free all of that? Help me, Jesus, overcome this sin, this besetting sin, this sin that so easily tangles me up. But understand this. You and I overcoming sin is just one of the ways that we experience the power of God. Just one of the ways that we experience the power of God at work in our lives. It's a really, really important one for sure. But Luke chapter 4, verse 18 really sort of captures the other way that we experience the authentic resurrection power of God at work in our lives. This from the Message, the words of Jesus Christ. This is Jesus, and he says this: God's Spirit is on me. He's chosen me to preach the message of good news to the poor, sent me to announce pardon to prisoners and recovery of sight to the blind, to set the burdened and battered free. And Jesus in that text is telling the whole world that the power of God has been released into him for these really quite specific purposes. He's to preach the message of good news to the poor. He's to announce pardon to the prisoners. He's to bring about the recovery of sight to the blind. He's to set the burdened and battered free by the power of God in and through his life. And so you see, for Jesus Christ, the presence of God's power, the access he has to God's power, it isn't just about him. Just like it's not all just about us. We don't just receive the power of God in our lives so that we can overcome sin. That's just part of it. The other reason that God releases his resurrection power into our lives is that, so get this, we may be about the very same things that Jesus himself was about. So that we may be about the very same things that Jesus himself was about. The things he just talked about. Preaching the message of good news to the poor. Announcing pardon to prisoners. Even the recovery of sight to the blind, yes. Setting the burdened and the battered free. Whoa. Jesus Christ came to planet Earth to live out the greatest rescue mission humanity has ever seen. That's the restoration of humanity, you and me, back to right relationship with God. And he's availed the very same power of God that he operates in us for the fulfillment of that exact same mission. He's handed it off to us. We're actually God's rescue team meant to live out his rescue mission every single day of our lives. His rescue team meant to live out his rescue mission every single day of our lives. Which means that you and I, the church of Jesus Christ, are meant by God to be about the same things that he gave us the power to accomplish, the same things he did. We should be asking ourselves, is the message of good news being preached to the poor because of God's power in and through my life? Is pardon being announced to prisoners because of God's power in and through my life? Any of us can ask these questions of ourselves. Are the blind, get this one, this like blows your hair back, mine especially. Are the blind recovering their sight? Are the blind recovering their sight because of the power of God in and through me? Whoa. Are the burdened and battered being set free because of the power of God through me? As followers of Jesus Christ, as his church, the very same power that raised Jesus from the dead is at work in and through our lives. God actually means for us to be working in tandem with his power to fulfill his purposes. For us to be about his great rescue mission right here, right now, all the way to and including the very same things that Jesus Christ himself was about. And somewhere inside a whole bunch of people, lots and lots of Christians, they hear that and they say, all right, that sounds really good. That sounds really nice. But Brian, that was Jesus, right? That was Jesus. Jesus who was preaching the message of good news to the poor, Jesus who was announcing pardon to prisoners, Jesus who was bringing about the recovery of sight to the blind, Jesus who was setting the burdened and battered free. And well, in case you haven't noticed, I'm not Jesus. And so this is what some people say, and so there's no way that I could do anything close to what Jesus did. Remember, Brian, Jesus was God, 100% man, 100% God, and well, I'm not God. Right? We like push back. Seriously? Recovery of sight to the blind? Me? What are you talking about? Whoa. But look at what Jesus says in John chapter 14, verse 12. I'm not making this up. These are Jesus' words himself to us. I tell you the truth. I tell you the truth. Anyone who believes in me will do the same works I have done and even greater works because I am going to be with the Father. I tell you the truth. Anyone who believes in me will do the same works I have done and even greater works because I am going to be with the Father. Whoa. And if you're a parent, you instinctively understand what Jesus is saying there, don't you? Those of us who are parents, we all want our kids to what? Far exceed us, don't we? Right? If you're a parent, you'll do anything so that your kid can far exceed. Only the most demented parent would ever want their kid to be worse off than they are, right? If you're a parent and you want your kid to be worse off, we're going to revoke your parenting license. We just think like you're unfit to be a parent, right? We want our kids to far exceed us. And Jesus is doing the exact same thing. He says, look, you as my followers, you as my church, you are going to be about the very same things as me. And guess what? Even greater things than me because I'm leaving. I'm checking out. I'm going to be with the Father in heaven. And understand this, church, the very same power that raised me from the dead is going to be set loose into you. So go, go, go. Go live out my rescue mission, Jesus says. Go live it out. Yes. Go preach the message of good news to the poor in and through God's power. Go announce pardon to prisoners in and through God's power. Go help the blind recover their sight, not in your power, in and through the resurrection power of God released in and through you. Yes, Go set the burdened and battered free in and by and through the power of God. Go rescue the lost in and by and through the power of God. Be about that, church. That's our job. That's our job. To be God's rescue team, living out God's rescue mission in and by and through his resurrection power. Jesus says, you will do these works, even greater works. That's your job. That's what you do. May 12, 2008 was a day that was absolutely horror-filled. You might remember a massive earthquake measuring 7.9 on the Richter scale hit the Sichuan province in China, killing, get this, over 70,000 people. 70,000 people killed just like that. Now, just before that earthquake struck, 9-year-old Lin Hao, he sat in his little second grade classroom with 30 of his fellow second grade students. And when the earthquake struck, Lin Hao's entire school building collapsed on top of him, on top of his classmates, on top of every other kid in his school. Somehow, miraculously, Lin Hao managed to survive. And before he escaped the rubble, he searched and he searched and he searched until he was able to find, 9-year-old boy, until he was able to find and rescue some of his surviving classmates, carrying some of them to safety. He carried, little 9-year-old boy, some of his classmates to safety. Lin Hao, he became quite a celebrity around the world even. You might remember seeing little Lin Hao lead the entire 2008 Chinese Olympic team into the stadium while holding the hand of towering 7'6" Yao Ming for the opening ceremonies of the 2008 Summer Games. It was quite a moment for that little guy, quite a moment for that whole nation that had been through so incredibly much in just a short period of time. An interviewer was asking little Lin Hao why in the world he had risked his life to save others. And he said, really, to no fanfare whatsoever, he just said very casually, I'm the hall monitor. It's my job. I'm the hall monitor. It's my job. And so you see, in our day, with so many people caught up in the pursuit of the kind of power that Fortune magazine measures, Jesus attempts in our day to break through all of that and say to you, to me, to his church, your job, church, is to make diligent use of the very same power that raised me from the dead to overcome the sin in your life, to do the very same works that I did and even greater ones, and to live every single moment of every single day as part of our Father's rescue team on his great rescue mission to humanity. Church, that's our job. That's our job. That's why we're here. And I'd like you to imagine with me, Narrate, if you could, just what Helena might be like. Just how Helena might be different if every single one of us was about that. And just imagine how your workplace and how your school and how your house and how your friendships and how your family relationships and how your entire community, as a matter of fact, might be different if you and I woke up every single day and saw it as our job to make diligent use of the same power that raised Jesus from the dead to overcome sin, to do the same works and even greater works than Jesus did, and to live every moment of every single day as God's rescue team on God's great rescue mission to humanity. Would you just imagine what this town, what this state would be like? Just imagine. And then, let's go get about it. Let's not just talk about it. Let's go get about it. That's our job. That is our job. Will you take your stuff and set it aside? And I just invite you to close your eyes and bow your heads if you would. I just invite you to noodle on these things with the Lord. And with your heads bowed and with your eyes closed, maybe there's some of us here today who have business that we need to do with God around something in our life that we're in desperate need of the power of God to overcome. Some sin, some encumbrance that we're just tangled up in that we just can't see a way out. We've been trying and trying and trying to put it down. And God's saying to us today, just let me. Just let me. All of your wrestling and all of your striving and all of your I can do it, I can pull myself up by my bootstraps, my rugged individualism, just put it down. And God says, just let me. Just ask me. God, please, by the very same power that raised Jesus Christ from the dead, will you come into my life and will you sweep clean these corners and these closets? Just take that and take that and take that. Jesus. Jesus, we're praying for a breakthrough in some of our lives, in some of those areas. Addictions, habits, hurts. Jesus, that you would take them and that we would be new, inexplicably new because of you. And maybe some others of us, we've had quite a low view of what Jesus might be able to accomplish through our life. We've said, I'm just going to kind of do my little thing, and that little verse about doing greater things than Jesus, that must be for some super Christians, but not for me. Hear Jesus whispering into your soul today, it's for you. The same things as Jesus and even greater things, Jesus says. That applies to you. And so by the grace and power of God, would you just avail yourself today to what it is that Jesus wants to do in and through your life? That you wouldn't just sell yourself short and just say, yeah, I'm just doing my little thing over here. And it's not little to God. It all matters to him, and he's using it to bring his kingdom right here on planet Earth, just as it is in heaven. And he's using your life. He's using your gifts. And then maybe some others of us, we've got business to do about what it looks like for us to live on God's rescue team. Some of us have said, I'm just too busy, I'm too scared, I'm too tired. I could never have that kind of conversation with. And just hear Jesus whispering into your soul today, let me. Let me. I'll give you the words. I'll give you the courage. I'll give you the time. I'll give you the money. I'll give you the... If you'll devote yourself, Jesus says, to me, I'll line everything else up so that you can be about the things that I intend for you to be about. And so, God, we've done a lot of business in this room today. And all of that stuff we're just lifting to you. We're just declaring our desperate need of you to come, to intervene, to work, to move, to stir, to heal, to break through, to break in. God, that by your resurrection power, the very same power that raised Jesus Christ from the dead, that there would be amazing newness in hearts and lives today. That shackles would be broken, that habits would be overcome, hurts would be broken through and healed, forgiveness sought and granted. Conversations that have been a long time coming, that they would be had, and that there would be words of life spoken one party to another where there's only been division. And oh Jesus, the newness that you're working in hearts here today, that it would trickle out from here, that it would scatter out from here into our communities and into our homes and into our neighborhoods and into our workplaces. And that our lives would be really, really useful to you, Jesus. And that your power would be very, very present in and through us. That amazing things would happen. Stuff that makes us go, whoa, only God could have done that. We avail ourselves to you, Jesus, and we love you and we worship you. We worship you alone, King Jesus. It's in your name we pray this.
For more information on Narrate Church, visit www.narratechurch.org or download the mobile app, now available for iPhone and Android.